slow-mo. She's blonde, like Denise Richards. No, she is Denise Richards, running from a mutant. No, a motorcycle gang. Too cliche. She's just running, okay? It's hot, dry, she's thirsty. Cut to water. Oh, wait. No, a Pepsi in a bottle. Big bottle. Cold, frosty. She reaches, there's a guy's hand. It's a handsome dude. Hey, it's my movie. Why not? Title, fade. I'm liking this.
Well made and appealing. And you can see that one of them really appeals to young Latinas. One appeals to teenage boys who, see themselves as geeks. The one, it was cut off at the beginning. There's the teenager who's in a library who needs refreshment as well. And the one who comes in as a child but then fantasizes that he can be a kind of a karate kind of guy if he drinks Pepsi. So I asked the question, do children really learn anything from these commercials? Does it create a desire for the product? Soda advertisers certainly must think so, because they wouldn't pay to put them on the air if they thought they had no effect. In fact, my own experience on ER proved to me that people learn from TV in spite of themselves. In 2001, I published a research article in the journal Health Affairs entitled Communicating Health Information Through the Entertainment Media. It was, to my knowledge, the first pre- and post-test study done. Previous studies are retrospective, where they would ask somebody, do you remember what you saw last night? In this case, we did a true experimental study where we did a random sample of viewers with Kaiser Family Foundation and asked viewers about human papillomavirus and cervical cancer. And we asked them before the show aired their knowledge about that issue. The show aired without us telling them to watch it, and then another random sample of viewers was queried a week later. No one knew what the study was for. These were just random viewers that were surveyed by Princeton Survey Research. Before the show aired, 24% of 40 million viewers back then had heard of HPV. A week later, after the show aired, just by watching about 5 minutes of that show, 47% knew that had heard of HPV. 9% of the viewers before the show aired knew that HPV is the cause of cervical cancer. After the show aired, almost 30% knew. So we were really chastened by those results, and we tried to provide accurate information to the writers of ER and to all health writers in Hollywood at this point through an organization called Hollywood Health and Society that's supported by the CDC and the Gates Foundation. And why do we do this? Because we know that people learn from television. Like it or not, adults learn from television, and so do children. As Dr. Kunkel pointed out, children see an inordinate number of commercials every year, and many of them are food-based. The research findings show that younger children are especially vulnerable to ads. Children younger than 8 do not recognize the persuasive intent of ads and tend to accept them as accurate and unbiased. That's from Dr. Kunkel's work. Children as young as 2 have opinions about specific brands that are advertised on TV. That's Borzakowski and Robinson, 2001. Advertising influences children's food preferences, purchase requests, and consumption habits. For example, children are exposed to between 4,000 and 7,000 food ads a year, depending on age. 34% are for snacks and candy, 28% for cereal, 10% for fast food, from the Kaiser Family Foundation, 2007. As children's TV viewing increases, so too does their daily caloric intake of fast food and soft drinks. That's a study from the Kaiser Family Foundation, 2004. So there seems to be a relationship between seeing cool commercials and wanting to partake in those products. Exposure to ads impact children's health. Research has shown that exposure to ads for certain products, such as alcohol, tobacco, or violent games and movies, may be harmful to children's health by stimulating positive attitudes towards greater consumption of such products. That's Wilcox 2004 from the American Psychological Association Task Force on Advertising in Children. So, what does this mean? I think we should think hard about how to manage the epidemic of childhood obesity. I'm not arguing to ban sodas or advertising, but I am saying that we do need to consider how to combat the enticing lure of the ubiquitous pitch to consume very high-calorie sweetened liquids. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all three presentations. Senator Flores.
Thank you. I'd like to get your opinion on the panel. I think it's been mentioned earlier, every time government seems to move in a direction of singling out this discretionary calorie, it's been mentioned to the earlier panel, these other commercials come on. It's food police and government somehow making choices for folks. I'd like to just get your opinion on that, because that's another campaign geared at us, the legislators or the policymakers. It's not out there to convince, if you will, parents to buy or parents to allow for the buying of these sugary drinks, but every time we start to move in a direction, the outcomes of these hearings seem to center a public campaign aimed at 120 votes in the California legislature or members of Congress. I'd like to have your opinions on that.
Yeah, I think that it was Dr. Brunel earlier who alluded to the extraordinary amount of money that's been spent already this year by lobbying efforts aimed at Washington and probably legislators in California as well, trying to forestall any action on a fee or tax on sweetened beverages. And specifically, the kinds of arguments that come up again and again on this topic. They're very similar to the arguments that we heard on efforts to control tobacco and alcohol. It's a very similar arguments around choice and individual responsibility. And in fact, some of the lead groups arguing on this side have the experience in making the same arguments on tobacco, the Consumer Freedom Organization, as they're so called.
So it is obviously a question of money. There's a lot of money to make commercials, and there's very little money for pro-social commercials about eating a healthy diet. So, what can one do about that? Well, the problem is, or how does one think about that? The problem is that children aren't really capable of making healthy food choices, especially at young ages, like from age 2 to 8. They know what tastes good, and they want to have that. And so if they're bombarded with commercials that are focused on fun things and animated characters, they're going to want those products, and we have the research that supports that. So it's in a way a specious argument to say that it's the food police, because the industries haven't been policing themselves in the way as those commercials just showed you. And we need to, obviously have a stronger element of education, because one, kids don't know that consuming several glasses of sweetened beverage a day is a huge portion of their daily caloric intake. And going back to that question of calories are calories, well, yes, calories are calories. A kilocalorie is defined as a kilocalorie, but the problem with sweetened beverages is that they're very concentrated calories in a glass, and you don't feel full often when you're drinking those concentrated calories as a child would do. And if it's going to be fun and everybody's doing it and it makes you look sexy like Christina or whatever, it's you're going against a huge behemoth, a cultural behemoth, so to speak. So I think it's in a way a specious argument to say that it is the food police coming out. That's just the way to cover up